Welcome back to Talk Tickers, a show where we really get into the nitty-gritty of earnings calls. And today, we're diving into Jumia Technologies Q3 2024 results. Now, Jumia, they operate this e-commerce platform across Africa. People call them the Amazon of Africa. Their Q3, well, we'll just say it had its ups and downs. Some good signs of growth, but some pretty big hurdles too.
Yeah, it's, for anyone watching e-commerce, especially in emerging markets, it's really interesting. I think what was interesting to me was just how many positive and negative things there were at the same time. They saw their first increase in active customers in like 2 years, which is pretty huge considering the economic environment.
Yeah, 1% year over year. I mean, it might not sound like a lot, but it shows that after some decline, they're gaining traction again. And, it's not just getting new customers. Their 90-day repurchase rate is up like a ton, 304 basis points.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely something to look at. When you have a high repurchase rate like that, it really means they're building customer loyalty. And that means lower customer acquisition costs later on, which is, super important for long-term profits.
Totally. Yeah, it shows they're not just following trends, but they're building something sustainable. And, speaking of sustainable, their orders for physical goods are also up 5%. So that's showing that their main e-commerce stuff is working for consumers.
Yeah. But then, on the other side, their GMV, gross merchandise value, it dipped by 1%. So at first, that seems like a warning sign.
Okay, so what's going on with that GMV decline?
Well, I think one of the big things that's affecting Jumia's numbers is currency devaluation in big markets like Nigeria and Egypt. Basically, when those currencies get weaker against the dollar, their revenue in those local currencies, it turns into fewer dollars for them.
So it's not like they're selling less. It's just, stuff happening outside that's affecting the numbers.
Exactly. And that same thing with the currency is hitting their revenue, which is down 13% year over year.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how is Jumia dealing with all of this? Because it sounds like they've got, some tough stuff to work through.
Well, they've been making some moves, showing that they're adapting, like they're consolidating their warehouses in key countries, combining smaller facilities into these bigger, more high-tech hubs.
Right. And I mean, bigger warehouses, that's got to be more efficient, faster delivery times. But isn't there going to be some disruption with a change like that?
Oh, yeah, of course. Anytime you're changing your logistics, there are going to be some bumps. But over time, this consolidation should, really help with their costs and scaling up.
And then there's the decision to leave the South African and Indonesian markets, which, that might seem kind of strange. Like, shouldn't you be trying to, get bigger, not smaller?
Right. I mean, on the surface, yeah. But those two markets were like a tiny part of their business. So by leaving, they can, focus on places where they can grow more. It's about making the most of what they've got.
It's like sometimes you got to take a step back to take 2 steps forward.
Yeah, exactly. It shows that they're making tough choices, but for the long term. And speaking of strategic moves, we can't forget about that ATM offering they did.
Oh, yeah, right? They got, almost $95 million. What are they going to do with all that cash?
Well, they said they're going to use it to improve their technology for sellers, making it easier for, businesses to work on the platform. They also want to get more customers and, reach more people in those key markets.
So they're like doubling down on the basics, right?
Yeah.
Getting more sellers, more buyers, and making everything easier to use.
Yeah, pretty much. And they're going to use it for logistics too, scaling up their delivery network, which is, huge for e-commerce in Africa.
Yeah. Logistics is, it can be a real problem in emerging markets, right?
Yeah.
But if they figure it out, it's going to be big for them.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And they're going to expand their suppliers too, so more stuff for customers to buy.
More choices for people, more chances for sellers. It's a win-win. But there's one big thing coming up that could be huge for Jumia: Black Friday.
Yeah, Black Friday is like the biggest thing in Africa for e-commerce. It's how a lot of people get into it. And, Jumia is doing everything they can to get ready.
Yeah, I mean, they've been getting ready with the warehouses and supply chains. Sounds like they're ready for a fight.
Oh, yeah, they are. And they seem pretty sure, from the earnings call, they can handle all the orders and make it work for everyone.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But before we get into our This Is Not Financial Advice segment and, come up with some crazy trade ideas based on all this, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back to talk about what could happen with Jumia in the future. And we're back to Talk Tickers. Time to put on our our thinking caps. This is not financial advice time. Just to be clear, this is all, just for fun. We're going to take what we learned about Jumia and come up with a crazy but maybe possible trade idea.
Right. Yeah. Just see what could happen. And with a company like Jumia, I mean, it's a wild market. There are a lot of interesting things that could happen.
Exactly. Yeah. We are not financial advisors, just to be clear. But for those of you who like to, play around with what ifs, let's think about some scenarios.
So we know that Jumia is at this turning point. Things are looking up, but there's some big challenges too. They're making moves, investing a lot, and really hoping Black Friday is gonna, push them forward.
It's risky, and for traders, risky usually means a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah.
Which brings us to our crazy trade idea: a long straddle on JMIA stock that expires right after Black Friday.
Ooh, now that's interesting. So just so everyone knows, a long straddle is when you buy both a call option and a put option, same strike price, same expiration date. Basically, you're betting that the price is going to move a lot, but you don't know which way.
Yeah, exactly. We're not saying if it's going up or down, just that it's going to, do something big.
And Black Friday, I mean, that could be the thing that makes or breaks it for Jumia, right? It could make the stock shoot up or, well, it could go down a lot too.
And with a long straddle, either way we win. Of
Oh.
course, this is risky. If the stock doesn't move much, we could lose everything.
For sure. Options trading is always risky, especially something like this. Don't invest more than you can afford to lose. Again, this is all just hypothetical.
Right. This is not financial advice. We're just playing around with the numbers and, seeing what kind of trades these earnings calls might lead to.
Yeah. But, maybe this will get you thinking and you'll come up with some cool trading strategies of your own.
Okay, so we've gone over Jumia's Q3, their moves, and even a crazy trade idea. Now let's step back for a second to see what it all means.
Right. Let's get back to the basics. What's the big picture here? Is Jumia a buy, a sell, or a hold? What are your thoughts?
That's the question, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, there's no easy answer. There are good signs and bad signs. They're getting more customers, but the currency stuff is hurting them. They're making moves, but those moves are risky.
Yeah. And we got to remember that e-commerce in Africa, it has a lot of potential, but it's still new and has its own problems.
Yeah, for sure. So we don't know what's going to happen, but what we do know is that Jumia is a really interesting company in a really interesting market. This deep dive has given you a look into their journey, their struggles, what they're trying to do.
Now it's, your turn to do some research, figure out what you think the risks and rewards are, and decide if Jumia is right for you.
But here's something to think about as you learn more about Jumia. We've talked about what they're doing themselves. The warehouses, leaving some markets, the investments. But what about all the stuff they can't control?
Oh, right. The external factors.
Exactly. So what if internet access changes?
Yeah.
Or mobile payments? Or even government rules? Those are all things that could really affect Jumia's future.
Yeah, that's important. It's not all up to Jumia. The whole system is changing. And that's something to remember when you're, thinking about this company and what might happen.
Okay, so there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into Jumia Technologies' Q3 2024 earnings call. We talked about what went well, what didn't go well, their strategy, and even came up with a speculative trade.
We've given you the information, the context, and hopefully made you think about some important questions. Now, it's up to you to figure out what you think.
Remember, this is just the beginning. There's so much more to learn about Jumia, about e-commerce in Africa, and all the possibilities. Keep learning, keep exploring, and as always, happy investing.
Yeah, and that's what's so interesting about this whole thing. It's not just about how one company is doing. It's about a whole market that's it's got huge potential.
Yeah. I mean, the cool thing is that Jumia isn't just making a website to buy stuff. They're building a whole system, logistics, payments. They're dealing with all these infrastructure problems that a lot of people don't even think about.
Right. They're basically setting things up for a whole new digital economy in Africa. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why this is so important for anyone listening, even if you're not, buying Jumia stock, understanding these trends, it can really give you a better idea of where business is going globally.
All about connecting the dots.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes those dots, they lead to some pretty unexpected places. That's what's so fun about these emerging markets.
So as we wrap this up, I'm curious, what do you think, what's the one thing people should should really think about after listening to this?
For me, it's just how big the opportunity is. Africa is going to have the biggest workforce in the world, probably by 2035, and the middle class is growing super fast. That's a lot of people who are just starting to, get online and buy things.
It's like, remember the early days of e-commerce in America or
Yeah.
China? It's kind of like that, but even bigger.
Exactly. And Jumia, they're the first ones there, and they've got big plans. They could be a really important part of how things change.
Of course, there are risks. We've talked about the challenges, how unpredictable things are, all the stuff they can't control. But there's also a lot to gain.
That's how it is with these emerging markets. More risk, more reward.
So for our listeners, it's not just about whether or not to buy GMIA stock. It's about understanding what's happening, the things that are shaping the future of how we buy and sell stuff, and how that could all turn into, investment chances.
Yeah, it's about opening your mind, looking beyond what you're used to, and maybe getting in early on something that really changes things.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this: don't forget about innovation, especially places that people often overlook. Keep learning, keep exploring, and as always, happy investing.